Estelle, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I am doing so well. It is April, which means it's spring and the weather is better and I can get outside more, except for the pollen. But yes, other than that, I'm doing I'm doing really well. It's been a good week so far.
It's like, yay, it's warm, and now I'm sneezing a ton.
Yes, unfortunately.
But it's warm, so that's the important thing. There's ways we can get around the pollen issues.
Yes, no. And I love being able to get outside. I'm fortunate to live in an area where I can be. And so it's lovely. If it's only for maybe 2 weeks of the year that I really can't stand to be outside, it's okay. It's well worth it.
Exactly. I agree. Well, I'm excited to get you on and dive into some good conversations today. But before we do that, just introduce yourself a little bit. Who are you?
I'm Estelle Tsalik, Dr. Estelle Tsalik. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I'm also a certified nutrition coach, and I started my business Living Well with Estelle because I really would love people to live well. I work as an inpatient physical therapist at a large hospital here in the area, and I get to see what happens when we don't live well and take care of ourselves. And so being able to be on the other side of that as well from a more preventative standpoint has been really exciting for me. I'm a former ballet dancer and musical theater from South Africa. I moved here to dance. And so I'm a mom of 3 kids. Life is a little crazy. I have an elite soccer player. So there's a lot going on. And so living well means a lot of things in all areas of our life, and understanding about integration and balance of nutrition and wellness and all the things. So that's kind of how I've gotten to my philosophy on wellness.
And I know this could be a big rabbit hole to dive into, and that could be a multi-hour discussion with this one question, but what is living well, or what is wellness to you?
So wellness to me really has evolved over the years. Like I said, I'm originally from Cape Town, South Africa. And so wellness is not a focus growing up. I come from a family that has a large history with chronic preventable illnesses. And it kind of just had that mentality of, my mom had diabetes. Oh, my mom was overweight. Oh, my mom had hypertension. Like those are the inevitable things that are going to happen to me. And then moving here, and I was dancing. And of course, you have that focus on wellness because you have to keep your body in tip top shape in order to, dance 8 hours a day. And then as I got older, went to physical, PT school and had kids, and realizing, oh, wellness is not just what I'm eating every day, it's what my body is taking in. So like whether it's the social media, like what are my thoughts, what am I reading? And it's become more now the pillars of like your mental wellness, emotional wellness, like your physical wellness as well. And what can I do every day to move the needle to a health outlook for me long term? That is what I would like my life to look like when I'm 60 or 70 years old. But I can't wait until I'm 60 or 70 to make those changes. I have to start doing it now in order to have that lifelong wellness that I wish my mom had, which she unfortunately doesn't. So wellness now encompasses all the areas of my life, not just my physical wellness.
I think it's so hard because when you're in your 20s and maybe young 30s, it's like you're invincible, nothing's going to happen to you. And like that's the age that we need to really start ingraining some of these, ideas, these concepts into people. But unfortunately, it's not until people are in their like upper, like maybe mid 40s into their 50s that it's like, oh, I need to do something about this.
No, I mean, it's true. Like you are invincible. I think back to what I used to subsist on as a dancer. So like, when I moved here, I'm living in New York City, I'm taking classes and doing all these things. I think maybe I had an apple and a drink. I would not really eat well. I did not eat to fuel what I wanted, like in performance. And now I realize you can do that for a little bit, but you cannot do that forever. At some point, you realize, oh, I actually need to go to bed earlier. I need to get more sleep. I need to eat better. Maybe what is that thing called? Protein? I need that.
That thing.
Oh, yeah. So no, as you age, unfortunately, you realize the habits you had in your 20s and 30s are not serving you well anymore. And you kind of wake up and you're like, oh, what can I do better? And hopefully, if we can keep educating people about, like, I think of it like a wellness piggy bank, right? So not that people are really thinking about investing in their wealth and their money in their 20s and 30s either, but if we think about it like as what investments are you, like, deposits are you making into your wellness bank in your 20s and your 30s, and then as your 40s and 50s, you need to start reaping those investments, right? So if you've taken care of yourself during those first 2-3 decades, now you get to your 50s, and the idea that, oh, I like, sometimes people will use the excuse of aging as why they can't do things. Oh, my knees hurt because I'm getting older, or my back hurts, or this hurts, or I'm not sleeping well. Like, they just think it's inevitable that that's supposed to happen. But no, it's not really supposed to happen. We could actually do something. So that's why you see those marathon runners and like 60. I have a friend who started running marathons when she was 60. Now, I don't know if I'll start doing that when I'm 60, but I certainly would like to have the choice to, if I want to. So yeah, I think of like, what deposits do you make daily into your wellness piggy bank so that you can crack it open when you're 50 and 60 and have a large investment waiting for you?
Yeah, it's funny. I just had a conversation with that similar along those lines with a guy I worked out with at the gym. He was just hanging out, like sitting on the bottom of the squat as we were just having conversation, or I walked over to say something to him. And he's like, he's like, a lot of people can't sit like this. And a lot of people think it's weird that we should, and don't think that we should be able to. I was like, I have this conversation with people daily because I'm like, and like, I'll talk about how, like, look at like people in Asian cultures who are used to being in those positions. They can do that up until their death. And it's like, it's not just because they're Asian, like, it's because they do it regularly. If we did it regularly, we could too. And it's just interesting how people just blame everything on, it's because of my age. My knees hurts because of my age. This is happening because of my age. And it's like, well, it's because you've done this thing for 30 years to create this, but it's not necessarily because of your age.
No, I mean, in that deep squat position. So up till about 2 years ago, I also did early intervention, and I would go into homes and, work on developmental delay. And that was one of the things, like playing in a deep squat, like picking up toys and doing all these things. Kids do it naturally. Like, they just sit in that squat all day long, playing with toys, picking up puzzle pieces. And yeah, or sometimes they have this 100th day of school thing where the kids have to dress up as a 100-year-old person. And they always have a walker or some assistive device. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get to 100 and I'm not going to have an assistive device. Why? We don't have to have that stereotype of an old person is like hunched over, bad posture, and they have an assistive device and they're like walking with this, intelligent gait. I'm like, no, we don't need to. Maybe we can start reframing what aging looks like.
Yeah. Be that 100-year-old person still running the marathon. Like, these people exist and we can all be them if we want to. So when we're talking, like, a lot of this stuff that happens to us so we aren't well comes down to lifestyle habits, those things we're doing. You already mentioned sleep, social media, which can be its own big rabbit hole of things. But like, what are, I guess, as a general, like, what are people doing to create this like unhealthy, unwell lifestyle, and what can we do in order to kind of work to start changing that?
Well, I think that what we can start doing to change it, and I mean, what they're doing is they may not really think about how their daily habits stack up, right? Like, what are you eating? Like, so my 4 pillars of wellness have to do with mindset, movement, nutrition, and sleep. So those are now have become core pillars of what I focus on. So like, what are your default habits, right? So if you were left your own devices, and you're like, what would you naturally do? Like, what don't you need to be reminded of? And that's because those are your habits, right? So when we're looking at, are you getting enough sleep? I think in our society tends, maybe now, given the last couple of years, people have realized that burnout is not a badge of honor, and that there needs to be better balance. I don't really think that there can be work-life balance per se, but there can be an integration of different areas of your life, so that maybe one week it leans more heavily towards the one side, and then overall it balances out. And so, you know, sometimes people have things that they need to do, so they prioritize getting the to-do list done rather than prioritizing sleep, right? And I think that sleep is so integral to everything, whether it's recovering from your exercise, recovering from your day, staying well. We know and are learning more and more about the importance of sleep. And so having your sleep be the center of knowing this is how much sleep my body really needs to function. And then everything else goes around it. So figuring out like, what's your sleep sweet spot, right? I know mine is 7 hours and 25 minutes, or like, about 7:15. That's what I need in order to really function well, wake up without an alarm in the mornings. And so that means that I have to backtrack from that. Do we set up a routine? Like I have 3 kids. When you're little, the kids are little, you have a bedtime routine for them to transition from, daytime into night. But we don't really do that for ourselves, right? I'm generalizing now, but a lot of people will sit, they're scrolling while watching TV and like doing 5 million things right up to the minute that they close their eyes and go to bed. So having a separation of, okay, I turn off my device, I leave it downstairs. Like you could just get a regular old-fashioned alarm clock. You don't need to have your phone be your alarm, right? So your phone does not have to come into the bedroom. You can have it just be a space where maybe you journal, maybe you have a nice brain dump before you go to bed, and focus on like, how can I set myself up so that I can transition, have a good night's rest, really wake up refreshed, because so many other things are linked to getting poor sleep. So you're not getting a lot of sleep. You tend to focus on foods that give your body energy, right? They tend to be the higher caloric, high carb foods that your body's going to be craving, not because you're not eating well, but because your body needs energy, and it's smart. It knows that protein's going to take forever to digest to give me energy. But that Snickers bar, now that's going to hit the spot. So it's, it makes it harder to make better choices during the day when we're not giving ourselves that time to sleep. So for me, I think we need to focus on what is it that makes us function well. And a lot of it comes to being aware, right? Having that awareness of knowing, oh, this is how I feel when I don't get enough sleep, or this is how I feel when I eat these foods that I may have enjoyed when I was younger, or, I think your palates and your digestive health and your gut changes as well. And so listening to your body, like maybe that is not a food is serving you anymore in your 30s or 40s or 50s, then have that less of the time. But being aware, right? And be more mindful about what you're doing to move your body. Maybe, you are an athlete that like to do sort of high intensity type training, but as you get older, that's not where you should function. You should focus your attention. So for me, I always recommend for people, once they hit 40, and probably it should be sooner, to focus on flexibility, strength, and balance, like incorporating activities that do those things into their weekly workouts. And workouts doesn't have to be something like punishing. I always think of exercise as celebration, and I don't even like using the word exercise for some people. I call it movement. Like, what are you doing to move your body? Like, find fun ways I love to dance. So I take a tap class weekly with my daughter, and that's a fun way for me to move my body on a Wednesday night. So it doesn't have to be something strenuous that you don't really enjoy, and you do it because you think you're supposed to, right? So finding things that you really want to do instead.
Awesome. You made so many great points there. One thing I do want to highlight is something you said about work-life balance. And it's something we always hear about work-life balance. It's something I read recently myself, as far as like, there is no such thing as work-life balance. Like, if you focus on one thing, the other one's going to suffer. And it's not like it's 50-50 and you're just going to like invest. And it really is finding that's like, all right, this week I have this big project due, so I'm giving more time to my work. Whereas like, oh, okay, like that project's done. Now I can focus on my family a little bit more. And we're going to go on this trip or whatever. And just being mindful that it's just like, there's never a perfect balance. It's just finding that like, where do I need to focus my time, either like in this moment, in this day, in this week, rather than stressing about like, I'm not giving my all to everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's difficult to give you all to everything all the time, right? And one thing that I think is important for people to realize is that I heard someone say, "No is a complete sentence." But boundaries, I mean, I think that when it comes to that work-life balance, integration, whatever you want to call it, is it's setting up boundaries for yourself, knowing that, and communicating, right? So if you do live with other people in your household, letting them know, okay, like this is a week where I have quite a few large projects coming up that really demand my attention, and I will make sure to, carve out some quality time. It may not be quantity of time with people, but having quality time in the downtime that you do have when you're not working on whatever is coming along. And therefore it's important to know that, okay, I think that it became difficult when people are working out of the home and not in an office anymore, to shut off at the end of the day, right? Because it was easy. You would pack up and you would leave and you go home, and you may not check your computer again, or work email, whatever. And setting up those same type of parameters in the home where you go, okay, I'm going to shut down. Like, this is it. I'm not going to check my work email again. Or if someone sends an email, I know my husband's one of those people, and I do too, because I might forget. So I will send an email that may be over the weekend, but that doesn't mean I want you to respond over the weekend. It's just that I'm thinking of it in that moment. And if I don't do it, I'm going to forget.
I'm the same way.
But don't feel obligated to respond to me. It is Saturday. Like, go do something else. It's just, it will be there waiting for you Monday morning. It's not urgent. I'm just getting it off my to-do list.
Right,
like,
exactly. Getting out of my head.
Getting out of my head. So I know, I'm like, I did that. So yeah, I think it's all about boundaries and realizing, like, what is it that you want? Like, what does you want your life to look like? If it's always a grind, you kind of forget, like, what is the purpose of what I'm doing? Like, I really think that people should enjoy what their job is, so that it doesn't feel like work. You really just wake up, you're like, oh, I get to do this today. Like, I woke up today, I'm like, I get to talk to Brianna today and be on a podcast. I'm like, so it's fun for me to know that these are the things that are coming up in my day. So, but yes, it's about boundaries and being able to say no sometimes.
Yeah, I think those boundaries are huge, especially, with so much technology and devices now. It's like you're always connected. For the most part, most people are always connected to their phones. And so it's like there are a lot of jobs, like, not that it's an obligation, but it's kind of it's kind of just this unspoken expectation that's like, oh, if my boss texts me at 8 o'clock at night, I'm going to respond to it. And I think there's just this, we've gotten so in, like, the technology world has gotten us so much more connected that we just feel like we have to respond to things when in all reality we don't.
No, we don't. I mean, and that's why I guess it's, it's a curse and a blessing at the same time, and learning how to moderate your use, right? And I think that it's not something that we always like. So maybe you enjoy being able to go on social media and keep in touch with everybody and see all of these things, but at the same time, how much time are you spending on social media? And could you be spending that time doing something productive in terms of, like, maybe you can read a book, maybe you can go and spend time with another human in person. I'm like, crazy idea there. See people and not feel like you see people because you see them on your screen, but actually talk to them. And I think that sometimes I feel like I'm keeping up with people's lives and I know what's going on because, well, I saw their Facebook stories and their Instagram, but in the reality is, like, I haven't picked up the phone to actually talk to them in forever. And so I try to make a point now. I have a couple of things I do every week. One of them is I write out 3 thank you sort of gratitude cards. I just mail it out to whoever I feel is called upon my heart to send them a little card, because I like happy mail, and I've been getting happy mail, and I was like, I'm going to send other people happy mail. And the other thing is just like calling people. So I'm one of, not that, I don't know how many of us are out there, but I don't like, if you've texted me 4 times back and forth, I'm going to call you. I don't like having a conversation via text.
No.
So I like to pick up the phone and talk to people. And sometimes you realize that what you see on social media is not really what's going on in that person's life. And, they just don't want to share that in that forum, which is fine. I don't think there's a lot of oversharing that happens these days. And it's okay. But I think that we need to still connect in real time to people the way we used to.
Yeah, I reached out to a colleague of mine recently, and just so I wanted to talk, like connect and talk to him. And in my message to him to schedule a time to talk, it was just like, hey, like, looks like things are going great, but I know social media can be deceiving. So hope you're doing well. And I'm like, it can, like, social media world, for the most part, people is just like, my life's awesome. And this is what we're doing. It's like, you don't see the, like, I can barely pay my bills right now, or, whatever.
Like I'm hanging on by a thread, send help. What is the thing? Check on your strong friends, right? I mean, because you're like, oh, they always have it together. They must be doing fine. And then you're like, well, if they're always checking in on other people, who checks in on them?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So yeah, because I do think mental health, that we're talking about it more, but it is a very important topic, and what you see on the outside isn't always what's going on within, right? And so if we do take the time to connect with people and they feel like that you genuinely are wanting to see how they're doing, they might be more likely to open up and share things that they aren't able to share with other people.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, like getting to know more people just in general and finding out like they were suicidal in the past, and just like how happy they looked in pictures or how happy they came across. It's like people in those situations are very deceptive as far as what's truly going on. And yeah, we never really know.
No. So, I mean, one of my childhood friends, and I mean, she was the most outgoing, happy person. I mean, she worked at a radio station. She was a DJ. I mean, there's no way you would have thought that she had so many demons, and she was going through such a dark period in her life, because on the outside, it just looked like, fairies and unicorns and marshmallows, and it wasn't at all. And sadly, it was too late for us to offer her any help. And of course, we would have been there. But I think if we have to start asking the right questions and just being there for people, and knowing that they can connect in a way that is not going to make us feel uncomfortable. Like, no, never. Just share.
Yeah.
If you're going through something hard.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's switch topics a little bit, or a lot actually. Want to get into nutrition side of things. I think we all know now, whether we follow it or not, we all know now, like, processed foods are full of a bunch of crap and we shouldn't necessarily be putting it into our bodies. But I think a lot of people don't necessarily know the why behind it. And I think that's always important. So that's kind of what the more direction I want to take, as far as like, why do our bodies not thrive when we're putting all the processed foods in us, and how do we start transitioning ourselves from like this very convenient on the go food lifestyle to a more like food as medicine type lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, and so convenience is great, right? I mean, like I told you, I have 3 kids, like they have activities, life is crazy. And so it is easy to just pull in at a drive-through and just pick something up, or when you're sitting outside of practice for hours on end, not to prepare. But our bodies weren't designed to eat the things or the chemicals and the fillers that they put in the processed foods. They're highly palatable, they are ultra processed, and they're designed in a way they are addicting. I mean, I started having my kids look at food labels and understanding, oh, what's the serving size, because they need to understand what they're putting in their bodies, but they also need to look at the label and see, oh, they add sugar or a sugar derivative word to pretty much everything that I'm like, this doesn't need sugar. Like, why is it even in here? And understanding that, yeah, there's going to be some sugars in foods because it came from fruit, and that's fine. But how much of it is there, right? And let's looking at artificial ingredients or ingredients that you can't even pronounce. So I like to be able to pronounce the things that I'm putting in my body. Or where are we shopping when you go to the grocery store? Are you shopping mostly in the middle of the store, or are you shopping the outer aisles? And even the way that shopping, like grocery stores are set up, like if you've ever, taken a kid in a shopping cart, all of the things at the eye level of the child at the shopping cart are probably not the best for them. Like if you go down even the cereal aisle, all of the oatmeals and the better, steel cut oats are either at the bottom shelf or they so far up that I'm 5'1 3/4. Like it's really hard for me to see the better grains and cereals that are actually there. Whereas the other day there's a cereal that's like basically chocolate chip cookies with milk. I'm like, yeah, I didn't understand. I was like, I'm very confused. How is this the cereal to eat, or Pop-Tarts or any of these processed foods? And because I had this conversation with somebody the other day that we have kids menus, and if you look at the kids menus at restaurants versus, well, we don't need a kids menu. We should just have a menu and everybody eats off the same thing. But it tends to be really beige foods, right? The chicken nuggets, plain pasta, or maybe mac and cheese, and they have French fries. Like it's just, there's not very many green things. Like they're not offering kids a side salad or a smaller salad. So I think that there's a lot that goes into how do we change things. But I like to have people focus on adding goodness into their daily diet, and diet as in what you eat, not going on a diet. I think we've totally misconstrued that for a word. But how about adding goodness into your day? But starting out with maybe a week of just tracking what you eat. And this is not like, don't change what you eat. Literally just, if you can't write it down, take pictures of everything that you put in your mouth that week, and then look at the colors. Like, do you see a variety of colors in the pictures that you took of your food? Like, what are you noticing? Is it mostly, simple carbohydrates? Are there any complex? Do you even know what a complex carbohydrate is? Like sometimes when you throw these macronutrient names around, assuming that people know what they are, and they don't. But do you know how much protein your body needs? Like a lot of times it boils down to being aware. And I think that once you become aware of like, oh, this is what I've been eating, like what can I do better? I'm like, oh, okay, maybe you drink a lot of, caffeinated or diet sodas every day. So rather than saying, I'm not going to be drinking those anymore, say, I'm going to have an extra glass of water with each of my meals, or I'm going to start my day off with, 20 or 16 ounces of water, like just adding more water, because that's a lot of volume, right? So you eventually have to let go of some other liquid you're taking in. It will most likely be not having as many sodas. Or maybe you say, oh, there wasn't a lot of vegetables in any of my meals. I'm going to add an extra serving of vegetables or make a small side salad to go with these things. And as you keep adding goodness into your meals, I find that naturally some of the other things fall by the wayside, or being more conscious of like, I ate this meal. How did I feel after I ate that meal, right? And be like, oh, I was bloated and gassy and didn't really feel that great. Then maybe that's not the kind of meal that you have on a regular basis. That is something that you have once in a while. The other thing I like to tell people is like, look at the schedule for the week. If you know that Tuesday and Wednesday nights are just crazy, maybe on Sundays, you prep some meals that you double batch, put one in the freezer that you can pull out so that you can easily reheat, and have something that's a little bit more wholesome than stopping by Chick-fil-A or any of these fast food places where the food is great, but they don't make you feel great if you eat that on a regular basis. So it requires some thinking and some planning, but it is doable. And if we set the model for our children that this is how we think about oh, let's plan for the week. Like involve them in the planning of like, oh, like, what do they like to eat? Maybe if the kids are old enough, they want to take over a night of cooking where they are in charge of making the meal on that night because maybe they're around and you're off with the other siblings doing something else. But involving them in the process of like, why do we eat this way? What are we trying to achieve? Like, it's not that all of a sudden when someone eats healthy, you're like, oh, they're on a diet. No, we should be eating this way all the time. And the people that are not should be like, why are you eating that way? Like, that's not really great for you long term, right? But it's gone completely the other way, where when someone whoops out a salad at lunch, you're like, are you on a diet? No, just eat foods that make me feel good. The end. Shouldn't be a discussion. It should be completely normal.
Always amazed by that. And I have that conversation frequently with a friend of mine. It's just like, why, like, because both of us eat very healthy. And it is one of those things, it's like, why is it like we're the oddball when we go out to eat with friends? Like, why is eating, like, how did this happen where like eating actual normal foods is being weird and being different?
I mean, and then you make people feel like some sort of shame of the like, oh, I'm like, no, just you're eating to celebrate your body and that's what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I do like pecan pie. I love dessert, but I know that. So I know that I don't buy a lot of sweet things and keep it in my house because I don't feel like great after I eat them. I like them, I enjoy them, but it's my 20% of the time, not my 80% of the time. 80% of the time, I'm going to focus on things that make me feel good. I know I'm not going to feel sluggish after I eat it. I have energy from it. And it's tasty, like healthy, like eating in a healthy way does not mean you eating kale. I'm like, for the love of God, if you do not like kale, don't eat kale. And if you don't like riced cauliflower, don't eat
it. Yes, totally.
Sorry, kale and cauliflower, but like, you don't have to do it.
No, that's true. Like, there's hundreds of vegetables out there. Like, if you don't like a couple of them, don't eat those and eat the other ones.
Yeah, just keep moving through the list. I mean, like, you can work your way around the produce aisle until you find things that you like. Oh, I like this, or prepare it a different way. Maybe you grew up eating cooked carrots, and you don't like cooked carrots. That's okay. Don't eat cooked carrots. They're quite delicious raw.
Oh, yes, that's funny. There's something I was going to say, and then I got way off subject, and now I don't remember. All good though. Oh, one thing speaking of like fast food and things, someone sent me this article last week or the week before, and he's like, hey, did you know this? It was fascinating. It was talking about how the paper wrappers that fast food is in contain some toxic chemical in it that, like, when the grease hits it, like, can infuse into the food. And then it goes on to talk about, like, since we're all still in the COVID world, goes on to talk about how the toxin can actually decrease the effectiveness of vaccines. I was like, awesome. I was like, this is fascinating and insane all at the same time.
Oh, goodness. Well, you'll have to send that to me because that sounds crazy. Good thing I don't eat that much fast food.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'll say he sent it. He texted it to me. I'll find it and send it to you.
Yeah, no, we certainly don't want to decrease the effectiveness of anything these days.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, one other thing I wanted to talk to you today is I know a lot of what you do with the people you work with is, and I think we touched on a little bit with lifestyle and nutrition, but I think there's deeper we can go, is how do we overcome this like fatigue that we're feeling, or how do we help our bodies to recover after our workouts or after we've just done some sort of like intense thing?
Yeah, so what I like to tell, and these are not these are my Living Well with Estelle clients that I work with as a wellness consultant, is just having a post-recovery routine, right? Just like I tell people to have a bedtime sleep routine. It's like, what are you doing after your workouts? Of course, as a physical therapist, I'm always going to tell you to make sure you stretch, hydrate afterwards as well. Like, what are you drinking during, but making sure that you're hydrating afterwards. Eating something within 45 minutes that is a combination of protein and carbohydrates, right? Not just, I know that like the soccer field, they're always giving kids chocolate milk to drink, but like, what is it that you can have afterwards? And also making sure that you do have that restorative sleep, because that's the time your body is really working on repairing and taking care of business. So making sure that you have deep restorative sleep is important. And that, so the cool down and stretch, prioritizing some protein and carbs within 45 minutes of working out, and then also having active recovery days. So not just constantly working out super hard every day, but like, can you fit in days where you're going for a walk or you're swimming, but not like hard swimming, like just swimming to move the muscles in a different way, or Pilates or yoga. I've become a fan of yoga flow, and that's kind of what I've been incorporating, which is nice because then you get to work on that balance and flexibility piece. Because in order for you to be better at the exercises that you do, like if you're a runner or at any type of performance, like I tell my soccer player daughter, it is important to work your muscles in a different way so that you don't have the same movement pattern all the time, especially since she's almost 16 and they've already have a girl on their team that tore her ACL. Like, this is, prime ACL tearing time, because they don't spend a lot of time, even though the coaches say, make sure you have, it's an active recovery day, it's not meaning lie on the couch and scroll TikTok. That is not an active recovery for anybody, whether you're 15 or 50. It's not. There is that time and place, but looking at ways of how you can still move your body in a different manner, in a gentle way, and helping it recover. And, or some people, I am a huge believer in supplementing with high quality bioavailable supplements. Like, what can I do to help my body? Because some of the things, my body doesn't produce. So making sure that I'm adding in the right supplements to help with the repair of my tissues as well is important. So yeah, so that's basically what I tell people. So cool down, stretch, prioritize having some protein and carbs within 45 minutes, have your sleep, your active recovery days, and then doing something for some mindset work is also really important. It's either having at the start of your day or at the end of your day, just a time to unwind, because I think we don't give ourselves enough time to sort of decompress. And you go to bed and then you just start it again. And it's just this constant, hamster on the wheel type of thing. And then on the weekends, you want to sleep in, which is not really optimal. You really should try to wake up at the same time every day. And if you're getting enough sleep, you won't feel the need to sleep in, which is something I'm learning now. As I'm older, I'm like, oh, when I sleep in, I don't actually feel very good. I have a headache and my body's just like, what did you just do? And I just feel completely off for the rest of the day. And I would have been better off just waking up at my normal time and using the quiet time in the morning for something else. So, but yeah, so that's what I would recommend people to really help with that fatigue, is how do you treat your body post-exercise or post-workout does play a role in how you'll feel the next day.
Something you touched on there, I think is super important. Something I've been working on lately is just like having that quiet time, because we are always like on the go. A lot of times, even if you're cooking and your house is empty, like radio's on, podcast is on, TV's on, like something's on for background noise. Very rarely do we just spend time like in quiet, whether it's sitting still or doing something in the house, but very rarely do we ever spend time in quiet. And it's just so important for the brain, for the body, for everything to just kind of like process, decompress, to have that quiet time.
No, I mean, and I didn't value it. I mean, I never thought it was important, because I'm just like, oh, I could be doing something right now.
Yeah.
Because you always feel like I'm just sitting here doing
I'm wasting my time.
Exactly. Like, I could be at least listening to a podcast, catch up on all brands shows. But no, just, I'm fortunate. I have my favorite place in the house. Actually, it's not even in the house. It's my screened porch. I even have a sign that says "Life is better on the porch" because I do live in the South. But just sitting out there and no phone, no nothing, just sitting and listening to nature. It's something that I'm trying to embrace doing because I do feel like, oh, what else? Like, what do I need to do today? So I start my day. I have my list from the night before, the 3 top things that I need to accomplish that day, and everything else is like gravy. I may sometimes add it to the list just so I can scratch it off because I'm one of those people.
Guilty.
But there is something really powerful about getting quiet, because I've had ideas or solutions to problems that I've been thinking about prior come to me when I take the time to be still.
Mm-hmm.
And can you sit still for 10 minutes? And it doesn't have to be like closed eyes, like in some sort of like yogi position. It could just be like just sitting and appreciating nature, listening to the bird sounds. Like how many different sounds can I hear as I sit out here, and just focusing on other things, and being quiet. Because I think that if you did that, challenge yourself to sit in quiet for 30 days, just 10 minutes for 30 days, you'll probably find it has a profound effect on just how centered you feel after you come out of that quiet time.
Yeah, definitely. And I listened to a podcast recently, and I like the way it was phrased, because we talk about meditation and how, and like a lot of people who you like when you talk about meditation, like, oh, well, I can't shut my mind off, I can't quiet my mind, which ultimately isn't necessarily the purpose of it. But it's a myth people have, like they need to be able to like fully like shut their mind off. But I've heard like this guy, he reframed it as far as just like, it's sitting. Like I sit, I don't meditate daily, I sit, and like I just sit in quiet for 30 minutes. And like I love that reframing of it, just because it does change the connotation of it. Like even though the exact same thing can be happening, it just changes the connotation of it.
Yeah, no, I was one of those people when they would say meditate, I'm like, oh, I can't meditate. Like I started making a grocery list in my head and like thinking of all these other things. Like, and then someone was like, well, it's okay for you to allow thoughts to come in, and then you just, have them just leave you again. But the reframing, I think, is really helpful for people, like people that don't like the word exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Just reframing and calling moving your body. Like, how are you moving your body today? Right. And so a lot of times we can get better buy-in from people when we use words that are less triggering to them. So just saying, I sit daily. It just happens to be quiet, and I'm not doing anything else at the same time. I love that. I'm going to be sitting daily.
Well, and I think too, just kind of thinking as you're talking is like, a lot of people think meditation has to do with religion. So then when you like, they're like, well, I'm not that religion, or like it counteracts what their beliefs are around that. Like when you call it sitting, it's just like, it changes it all. And there's like no fight.
Yep. Yeah. We will all be sitting every day.
Yes. Sit in quiet. That's all you need to do. Solve the world's problems.
Well, you never know.
Actually.
Yeah, you might actually. Things will come to you. Because my son, he always says, oh, I'm bored. I'm like, do you know what happens when people get bored? They start to think of amazing things. Like that's how they, start inventing things when they're bored. They come up with different games. They come up with different things to do. So it is good to be bored. So I should tell him, let's all sit. He'll probably think I've lost my mind, but yes, we should encourage sitting in children too.
I love the reframing boredom too. That's awesome.
Let's reframe boredom into, we're just going to sit and be grateful.
Awesome. Well, Estelle, this has been a great conversation, very entertaining as well. If someone has more questions for you or just wants to follow you, where can they find you?
So my website is pretty simple. It's just livingwellwithestelle.com. And so that's where they can find me. But otherwise, I'm on Instagram as Living Well with Estelle. And then just Estelle Tsalik on Facebook. I love connecting with new people. I'm also Estelle Tsalik on LinkedIn. And I definitely love connecting with people just to talk more about, I could talk about wellness and health and longevity and South Africa, travel, any of those things, all of the above. Or if they want to give me some more ideas on just reframing, on mindset, I would love to connect.
Awesome. Well, this has been super fun. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.